Surrey's hills and historic towns hide dark secrets. From ruined abbeys and haunted castles to spectral inns and churches, these 10 places still echo with tragedy and restless spirits. Guildford Castle, high on a chalk hill above the riverway, Guildford Castle has kept silent watch for almost 9 centuries. Its first stones were laid soon after the Norman conquest, and for much of the Middle Ages, the keep served as royal lodging and later as a prison. The outer walls now stand partly in ruin, softened by ivy and formal gardens, yet the air around the tower still carries a chill that outlasts sunset. Visitors say that the stones seem to breathe with memory, as if the centuries of confinement and conflict have seeped into the very mortar. Legends speak of several restless inhabitants. A Victorian lady drifts through the landscaped grounds, her dark dress flickering at the edge of vision, before vanishing among the yews. More unsettling is the figure of a man in chains, who appears only once a year in the autumn, trudging along the keep's inner walls. Some believe he was a prisoner, left to perish behind locked doors when the castle was used as a jail. A staff member once locked the building for the night, only to look back and see a woman in full Victorian gown standing calmly atop the motte. When he hurried up the spiral stair to challenge her, he found only the empty platform and the echo of his own breath. Inside the keep, the atmosphere grows denser. Narrow stairways carry the scent of damp stone, and a sudden drop of temperature has caused more than one late-staying guide to retreat in haste. On quiet evenings, a faint clink like metal brushing stone travels through the tower. Some have heard low voices in the great chamber, a fragment of conversation lost across centuries. Whether these manifestations are echoes of medieval captives, loyal retainers, or something older still, Guildford Castle remains a place where history and legend merge. Stand beneath its looming keep as dusk settles, and it is easy to feel unseen eyes watching, as if the walls themselves remember every life lived and lost within their shadow. Lithill Hotel, hidden among wooded slopes near Haslemere, Lithill Hotel combines Tudor beams and elegant gardens with a reputation that is far from tranquil. Long before it became a country retreat, the house stood as a private manor where servants whispered of strange happenings after dark. Today, its timbered corridors and creaking staircases still seem to carry the weight of untold stories, and guests speak of an atmosphere that deepens as night falls. The most persistent legend centers on the Catherine of Aragon suite. Visitors who book this handsome room sometimes report the quiet creak of floorboards when no one is near, or the faint brush of fabric across the bedstead. Some have woken to a soft whisper just before dawn, as if someone unseen is trying to speak. A few have described the silhouette of a woman gliding across the room, her outline pale against the old oak paneling before dissolving into the shadows. The hotel itself nods to the mystery, even providing ghost hunting equipment for curious guests who wish to test their nerve. Elsewhere in the house, there are subtler signs. A door that latches itself despite careful checks. A corridor that grows sharply cold without cause. Staff working late have heard the distant echo of footsteps that never arrive, or the muted sound of a lute or viol drifting from the garden on still nights. No historical record names the spirit, yet some believe she may have been a faithful servant or a heartbroken visitor whose sorrow rooted her to the spot. Outside, the gardens can feel equally charged. Beneath the spreading chestnuts, sudden currents of cold air have startled evening walkers, and once or twice a mist-like figure has been glimpsed by the ornamental pond before vanishing with the ripple of water. Dogs brought to the grounds have been known to stiffen and refuse to approach the old carriage arch, as if sensing a presence that their owners cannot see. Whether restless memory or living legend, Lithill Hotel invites those who enter to listen closely. In the quiet hours before dawn, when every creak and sigh of the ancient timbers seems alive, the past feels only a breath away. Reigate Fort, set high on Reigate Hill with sweeping views across the Surrey countryside, Reigate Fort was built in the 19th century to guard London against invasion. Today, the fort's grassy ramparts and stone magazines appear peaceful, but when the gates close and the evening mist rolls, in this Victorian stronghold seems to wake with memories of its former watch. Visitors often speak of an atmosphere that tightens as dusk settles, as though unseen sentries still keep their silent vigil. The most often reported figure is a tall, shadowy man wearing a soldier's coat and a brimmed hat, described as a sentry from another century. He is said to appear near the old guardhouse or along the pathways that lead to the gun emplacements. Sometimes he is glimpsed only as a silhouette against the twilight, pacing with slow deliberation before fading into the earthworks. Others feel his presence without sight, struck by a sudden chill and the unmistakable impression of eyes watching from just beyond the lantern's reach. Inside the powder magazines and subterranean passages, the sense of unease grows sharper. Guides locking up at night have heard the echo of heavy boots on the gravel when no one else is present, or the faint metallic rattle of chains and equipment long since removed. On still evenings, a distant voice, half murmur, half command, has been caught by modern microphones and promptly lost to silence. Local lore suggests that these experiences may be echoes of the fort's own history. Soldiers stationed here endured long cold watches, and some believe that one of them, perhaps a sentry who died suddenly on duty, remains bound to his post. Others whisper of older spirits, for the hill was a site of ancient trackways and Iron Age defences long before the Victorian engineers arrived, its ground already heavy with centuries of human presence. Whether born of military discipline or deeper layers of time, Reigate Fort, after dark, carries an unmistakable charge. As the wind slides across the downs and the last light drains from the sky, the quiet is never complete. Somewhere within those shadowed walls, a watch is still being kept. Waverley Abbey House, set beside the tranquil River Wey near Farnham, Waverley Abbey House looks serene in daylight. Yet as dusk deepens and the ruined arches of the old Cistercian abbey cast long reflections across the water, the atmosphere changes. Built in the early 18th century beside the 12th century abbey ruins, the house carries the weight of centuries of devotion, dissolution, and quiet mystery. Visitors often sense that the past still breathes in its echoing corridors. One of the most enduring legends is the phantom coach and horses. Many have described the sudden rush of air and the rhythmic clatter of hooves on the road that skirts the estate, though nothing appears to the eye. Drivers on the nearby lane sometimes glimpse a glimmer of lantern light and hear the rattle of harness, only for the sound to fade into silence, as if the unseen carriage has passed into another world. Inside the house, staff and guests alike report cold currents sweeping through rooms where no draft exists. Doors that were firmly shut are found ajar, and the faint scent of candle wax hangs in the air when no candles have been lit. In the stillness of late evening, a few claim to hear a quiet chanting, like distant voices raised in prayer, drifting from the direction of the abbey ruins. Some believe these events are echoes of the monks who lived and prayed here before Henry VIII's dissolution scattered them. Others think the phantom coach may recall an 18th century tragedy when a carriage overturned on the narrow bridge nearby. Whatever their source, The manifestations have an uncanny precision. A night watchman once followed the sound of hoofbeats across the lawn, only to find the grass unmarked and the gates firmly locked. To walk the grounds alone at twilight is to feel layers of time press close. The ruins stand silver in moonlight arches, like silent witnesses to vows broken and lives cut short. Whether it is the monks returning to their cloisters or the memory of a fatal journey replaying on endless loop, Waverley Abbey House remains a place where history refuses to rest and where the quiet carries a deeper, older resonance. The Crown Inn, on Old Oxtead's historic High Street, stands the Crown Inn, a timber-framed coaching house that has welcomed travelers for more than 4 centuries. By daylight, its oak beams and hearth-lit bar promise warmth and hospitality, but when the last guests leave and the village settles into silence, the inn takes on a different character. Locals say that after closing time, the past returns step by careful step. One enduring tale speaks of a lady in a white gown who drifts through the upstairs rooms. Her visits are marked by an abrupt chill, so sharp that one witness saw his breath mist in midsummer air. Staff have followed the sound of her soft footfall along creaking passages, only to find doors closed and rooms empty. Some believe she was once a landlady who tended to guests long after death, still making her nightly rounds to ensure all is well. Downstairs, the bar is watched over by another rarer presence. Patrons seated by the old fireplace sometimes catch a fleeting glimpse of a figure beside the hearth, a silhouette that vanishes when approached. Glasses have been found, moved or stacked in odd arrangements. On quiet nights, faint knocks echo from the walls, and the scent of wood smoke lingers, though the fire is cold. Animals, it seems, sense what humans can barely grasp. A former landlord told of his dog halting at the foot of the staircase, ears flat, refusing to climb. Moments later, a sudden drop in temperature swept through the hallway as though something unseen had passed by. No one can say for certain who these spirits were in life, but their habits feel curiously domestic. The white-gowned lady in particular seems protective, rather than menacing, a silent hostess keeping watch over her inn. Yet, there is an undeniable unease when the building grows still. The Crown Inn is a place where the line between past and present blurs after dark, where every creak of a stair or sigh of draught carries the possibility that someone from another century is walking beside you, unseen, yet very much present. St. Andrew's Church. At the heart of Farnham, St. Andrew's Church rises above winding lanes and old market houses. By day, its mellow stone and quiet churchyard offer a picture of English calm. Yet when dusk falls and the bells are silent, the ancient church seems to draw breath of its own. Parishioners and nighttime passers-by speak of strange sights and sounds that have threaded through the centuries. Worshippers have long reported the scent of incense hanging in the air when no service is taking place. Some have entered the nave to find the glow of candle-like lights and to hear the low murmur of Mass in progress, though the church is locked and empty. Others tell of a ghostly congregation glimpsed in the aisles, their heads bowed in silent prayer, vanishing like mist when approached. A faint choral singing sometimes drifts from behind bricked-up doors and the great east window where no living voice could be. Among these mysteries walks a white lady. She has been seen stepping from the parapet only to disappear before touching the ground, a motion so smooth it seems dreamlike. An older figure, wrapped in shawl and bonnet, is said to tread the church path at 6 each evening, pausing to chat with an unseen companion before entering the porch. When curious onlookers follow, the door stands locked and the figure is gone. Even more unsettling, is the tale of a phantom priest. A policeman once followed a cassocked man from the nearby Bishop's Table Hotel towards the church. He watched the priest enter and heard faint singing from within, yet found every door bolted from the inside and not a soul present. The churchyard itself holds its own secrets. Visitors walking alone after dark speak of sudden cold currents that swirl without wind and of soft footfalls pacing beside them on gravel where no one walks. Though St. Andrew's has witnessed countless weddings and farewells, something older than memory lingers in its stones. Whether these presences are echoes of centuries of worship or restless spirits that never left the church, remains a place where the sacred and the spectral seem to meet a quiet stage for mysteries that time cannot lay to rest. Smallfield Place. Tucked behind quiet lanes and ancient trees, Smallfield Place appears every inch the peaceful Jacobean manor. Its mellow brickwork and formal gardens speak of centuries of steady domestic life. Yet as twilight folds over the pond that once formed part of a defensive moat, the house begins to show another face, one shaped by sorrow and silence. Local legend centers on the lady in white, whose pale figure has been seen at the water's edge, gazing into its dark surface as if seeking something lost beneath. Witnesses describe her as finely dressed, yet wreathed in grief, her outline shimmering faintly before dissolving into the night air. Sometimes she lingers for long minutes, as though bound to the place by a memory that cannot fade. Inside the drawing room, another presence stirs. Guests and staff have spoken of a woman in a dark blue dress who appears suddenly and moves across the paneled chamber with a deliberate grace before vanishing into a corner where no door stands. Her quiet footsteps and the faint rustle of her skirt have startled more than one late visitor. The atmosphere within can shift in an instant. Doors that were firmly latched swing open, and a soft sighing travels along the oak staircase when no breeze exists. On rare occasions, a low humming, like a distant lullaby, has floated through the house, stopping as abruptly as it begins. These episodes leave a stillness so profound that time itself feels momentarily suspended. No firm history explains these apparitions, yet the stories have settled into the fabric of the house. Some suggest the lady in white was a young mistress of the manor who suffered an early loss, perhaps a child who drowned in the moat, or who waited in vain for a lover who never returned. Others believe she represents the quiet grief of centuries of residents whose lives unfolded and ended within these walls. Whatever the cause, Smallfield Place retains an air of gentle melancholy. Visitors speak of leaving with an ache they cannot name, as though they have brushed against a sorrow too deep to measure. Here in Surrey's countryside, beauty and haunting share the same still garden paths, and the past refuses to sleep. Newark Priory, beside the slow-moving riverway, stand the weathered ruins of Newark Priory. These broken arches and moss-softened stones once formed part of a thriving Augustinian house founded in the 12th century and dedicated to the Virgin Mary and St. Thomas Becket. Centuries of worship ended abruptly in the 1600s when the priory was dissolved and left to decay. Today, the site is silent, but for the rush of water and the low call of wildfowl, yet many believe that the old rhythm of prayer has never truly ceased. Locals speak of monks who still walk the shattered cloisters after dusk. Their figures appear faintly against the moonlit walls, cowled heads bowed, moving in single file across the grass where stone corridors once stood. Some witnesses have heard the soft echo of Gregorian chanting, drifting across the meadows, a sound too measured and pure to be mistaken for wind or distant music. Those who venture close to the river after dark tell of sudden cold that spreads through the reeds even on warm summer nights. One fisherman described a quicksilver chill that made his breath show in the air and froze the line in his hands. At times, a bell seems to toll far away, though no church stands within hearing. Others have felt a gentle pressure at the shoulder, as if guided or seen a light, like a candle flicker briefly inside the roofless nave. Legends linger of hidden relics buried when Henry VIII's commissioners arrived, and some say the monks' unrest springs from their vow to guard those sacred objects. Another story speaks of a prior who defied the king's men and met a violent death, his spirit still pacing the riverbank to warn intruders. Whether these tales are fragments of history or creations of the collective mind, the effect is the same, an atmosphere thick with memory. Newark Priory is private land, and visitors are asked to keep to the public footpaths. Yet even from the allowed vantage point, the sense of something enduring is unmistakable. As twilight settles and the river darkens, the ruined arches seem to breathe with the lives once lived here, their silent procession continuing long after the last bell was struck. Dorking Antiques. At the heart of Dorking's historic West Street stands a charming antique shop that hides a much older secret. Long before it displayed fine furniture and porcelain, the building served as a funeral parlor. Beneath its timbered roof and creaking beams, bodies once lay in quiet vigil while families gathered to mourn. Today, the shop welcomes collectors and curious visitors, but many claim the past has never fully left. The current owners speak of sudden cold pockets that drift through rooms even on warm afternoons. Lamps flicker without reason, and mirrors show fleeting shapes that vanish the instant one looks straight at them. Several times, a delicate scent of funeral lilies has filled the air when no flowers were present. One shopkeeper working alone after closing heard soft footsteps on the stairs and a gentle knock at the attic door, though every key was safely locked below. Most striking are the appearances of a ghostly woman, known simply as the Lady of Dorking Antiques. Described as wearing a long dark gown and a veil, she has been seen gliding between displays of old clocks and cabinets, sometimes pausing as if to study a particular item. A customer once reported meeting her eyes in a large gilt mirror and feeling an icy breath at the back of her neck, only to turn and find the room empty. Local legend suggests she may be a former mourner who never left the side of a loved one, or perhaps a caretaker bound to the place by years of solemn duty. A few believe she is connected to one of the long-ago funerals held in these very rooms, her grief preserved, like the antiques she moves among. Whatever her story, those who encounter her speak less of fear than of a profound, unsettling sadness. By evening, when West Street grows quiet and the last visitors depart, the shop takes on a different life. The tick of clocks grows sharper, and the old floorboards seem to breathe beneath the weight of invisible steps. Whether the lady is memory legend or restless spirit, Dorking Antiques remains a place where the boundary between the living and the departed feels unnervingly thin. Brooklands Museum. Brooklands Museum, set on the historic grounds of the world's first purpose-built motor racing circuit, is a place where speed and innovation once defined an era. From its early days of roaring engines to its wartime service as an aircraft production site, Brooklands has witnessed triumph and tragedy alike. That history lingers in the quiet hangars and along the faded track, where many visitors believe echoes of the past still race on. The most famous spirit is said to be Percy Lambert, a daring driver who became the first man to cover 100 miles in 1 hour. In 1913, while chasing yet another record, his car spun out of control. The impact was fatal, and legend holds that his presence has never left the track. On still evenings, staff and guests report the phantom hum of engines and the sudden rush of air as if a car were hurtling past. Some have even glimpsed a figure in a leather coat cap and goggles striding purposefully along the old circuit before fading like smoke. Other stories speak of a second driver, Captain Toop, whose life also ended here. His spectre is described with unsettling detail, his head said to hang at an impossible angle, perhaps recalling the accident that claimed him. Mechanics in white overalls and ghostly motorcyclists have also been spotted, their footfalls and sudden door slams startling those working late. Dogs brought to the museum often refuse to cross certain stretches of ground, howling at something unseen. The echoes of Brooklands' aviation years add another layer of mystery. Visitors have heard the sound of aircraft engines and even the brief shadow of a biplane sweeping over the tarmac on cloudless days. A few have reported metallic crashes or the smell of hot oil when no machinery was running. These fleeting sensations seem to bridge the long decades since Brooklands thrummed with the life of race and flight. Today, the museum preserves and celebrates technological achievement, yet as darkness gathers over the old banking and hangars, it is easy to imagine the restless spirits of drivers, pilots, and mechanics still keeping vigil. Brooklands remains a place where history does not merely sit behind glass, but stirs and moves in the night. Surrey's castles, abbeys, and quiet lanes hold more than history. Share your own ghostly encounters, suggest the next haunted county, and stay with creepy experience for new journeys into Britain's dark past.